What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video we're going to be focusing on some second-year running backs, and more specifically whether or not I'm going to be buying or selling their current ADP heading into the 2024 season. So some of these guys had really impressive rookie seasons, others were kind of projecting a breakout, and we're just going to kind of figure out, if these guys are solid targets here in the 2024 season. If you guys enjoy the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know if you agree or disagree with any of these takes. But let's start off with the running back from this 2023 class that's going first in fantasy drafts this year. It's going to be Bijan Robinson, and he's currently being drafted as the running back 2 overall after CMC and then just right before Breece Hall. So him and Breece are back-to-back on most platforms, but Bijan's actually a guy who's coming off of a pretty disappointing rookie season, at least fantasy-wise. He was drafted as a very early running back. Even though he was a rookie, people, including myself, were very, very high on him heading into last year. Ends up finishing as the running back 17 in points per game, and it really just came down to his overall workload. It's not like Bijan actually struggled when he was on the field. It's just that he didn't get a ton of opportunities. He had a 53% opportunity share, so he's barely getting half the backfield. And when you're a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, that's insane. He had the 31st highest opportunity share in the NFL, which just isn't going to get it done for fantasy. And I mean, that type of usage is just straight up like Arthur Smith coaching malpractice. I don't think that would have happened on really any other team in the NFL if he was stepping into like the clear RB1 role. When we look at Bijan Robinson, he was an elite running back prospect. You're not getting picked 8th overall in the NFL draft if you are not a top-tier option at the running back position, and he produced well considering his opportunities. He has a new coaching staff coming in. We do not have to worry about Arthur Smith anymore, and I do think he's lined up here for a workhorse role on a much better offense. You have Kirk Cousins coming in, a massive quarterback upgrade. Really, everything has gone right for Bijan Robinson this offseason. Now, I personally would take Breece Hall as the running back 2. I just think we've already seen it out of Breece Hall. He had a running back 1 season last year with no Aaron Rodgers. We know Breece also has that 3-down skill set. So personally, I would take Breece as my RB2, but Bijan Robinson's right after him as my RB3. So if you prefer Bijan, I'm not going to push back on it. The way I currently have my top 6 players ranked is CMC at number 1. Then I have the 3 wide receivers of Lamb, Hill, and Chase. I think that's the order I have it. And then I have Breece and Bijan. I think you could probably make an argument on certain platforms for Bijan to be as high as running back 2. If you think the running back talent is just going to completely fall off. So even though I might be slightly lower positionally, I still think Bijan Robinson is a very strong pick pretty much anywhere in the first round. Now pivoting over to the next year 2 running back, it's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs, and he's not going too far after Bijan Robinson here. He's being drafted as the running back 4. And he is a guy who's coming off of a great rookie season. Was the running back 8 in points per game. We really saw him start to break out after he came back from a hamstring injury. In his last 10 games, he averaged 19.4 PPR points per game, and he did that on a season where he had a 51.2% opportunity share. So he was barely getting half the backfield, and some of that is because David Montgomery missed some games, but this was not on a massive workload, and he was still the running back 8 in points per game. You should expect him to build on that opportunity share. I don't think he's ever going to be like a 70+% guy just based on his build. In this Lions offense, I don't think they want to use him like that. But if he can get up to that 60% area, his ceiling becomes even more apparent for fantasy. We know he's going to have the efficiency. He's going to have the receiving usage. He also has the touchdown upside on this Lions offense. So I just straight up agree with this ranking here. Pretty in line here with consensus on Gibbs. Now pivoting over to the next running back, it's going to be Achane, who's currently going off the board as the running back 8. And in his 9 full games last year, he averaged 11.2 carries, 3.9 targets, and 20.8 PPR points per game. When you compare his workload to the fantasy production, it seems kind of crazy because he's barely getting, 15 opportunities, which is fine, but it's nothing crazy. Yet he's given you over 20 PPR points per game when he was healthy and on the field. He was wildly efficient as a rookie. He had the best rushing yards over expected per attempt by a ton. He doubled up the next highest, which was Christian McCaffrey. He also led all running backs in yards per touch, breakaway run rate, and fantasy points per opportunity. Similar to Jahmyr Gibbs, Achane's never going to be a guy who handles a massive workload. He's 5'9", 190. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to make sense, especially with this Dolphins offense. But we've already seen he has flashed a crazy high ceiling even without insane usage. For me, I really like Achane here as the RB8. You're looking at his competition. You have Raheem Mostert, who's getting up there in age. I believe he's 32 years old. You have Jalen Wright as a rookie. There's no reason why Achane should not be leading this committee here for the Dolphins, and even in a split workload last year, he was still wildly productive, so I really like Achane at this RB8 price tag. He's my RB6, so I think I'm going to have a lot of shares of him this season. Really like him at his current price. Now the next running back here, kind of a fall off after those top three. It's Tyjae Spears as the running back 37. Also, not sure if I said this at the top, but these are just going to be the running backs going in the top 12 rounds, so we're not going to be talking about like every single late round dude here. But going with Tyjae Spears, I actually recently talked about him as a must-draft running back. I think his price has risen, maybe one spot since then, but still think he's a nice buy at this price. He played a decent role as a rookie. He actually led to Derrick Henry having by far his lowest opportunity share since 2018. So even though Spears didn't have a massive workload, he was playing behind Derrick Henry, who had just been an absolute, volume monster, someone who dominated the opportunity share. And he kind of led to a little bit of a shakeup in that last season. Had a solid role, in year one. 70 targets, 59 receptions, 385 receiving yards. Very involved as a pass catcher. 7th in target share, 6th in yards per touch, and then 5th in yards created per touch. We know the Titans went out. They signed Tony Pollard in free agency, which was unfortunate for Tyjae Spears. You were kind of hoping he'd be lined up to be the starter. Now it's kind of an ambiguous backfield. Is Tony Pollard just going to step right in as the RB1? Is Tyjae Spears going to be able to compete with him? But Tony Pollard's not exactly coming off of like some great season where he was dominant. Like, this is not Tony Pollard coming off his 2022 season where he was super efficient. 2023, it was rough. His efficiency fell off. He was not great in the red zone. So I think there are real opportunities here for Tyjae Spears to make an impact, whether that's in like a 1A, 1B committee where he can give you weekly RB3 production. If this offense really ends up hitting and Will Levis plays well, maybe they're both like back-end RB2s. I just think that at his current price, he's being valued as if he's, pretty much a locked-in handcuff, which even if he is a handcuff, he's going to be one of the better ones in the NFL. And there's just so much upside that he's not in that situation. So if you're getting him as like an RB4, I think that's a great spot for Tyjae Spears to go. Now the next running back here, it is going to be Chase Brown, being drafted as the running back 38, and Brown really didn't do a ton early on in the 2023 season. He started seeing consistent touches in week 13, so on the season he finished with 44 carries for 179 rushing yards, and then 14 receptions for 156 receiving yards, 1 total touchdown. Now, Chase Brown was someone who wasn't some sort of like top prospect. He was a 5th round pick, but he is a very impressive athlete who has solid size at the running back position. So definitely, has some interesting features here. And what you really like about Chase Brown is that this Bengals running back room is pretty open at this point. They signed Zach Moss in free agency, who is coming off a career year. He was running back 28 in fantasy points per game. He was 5th in rushing yards over expected per attempt. But Zach Moss is definitely not some sort of like proven world beater running back. He hasn't been a top option in the league year after year. So with Chase Brown, he's in an ambiguous backfield on a top offense. If you like Chase Brown, you're a believer in him, or you're not super high on Zach Moss, I'm fine taking a swing on Chase Brown here at his current price. Probably worst case scenario, he's a handcuff on a really good offense. So I think RB38, totally fine spending like an early RB4 pick on a guy like Chase Brown. And then also in that RB4 territory, we have Zach Charbonnet, running back 42. He's coming off an okay rookie season, rushed for a little under 500 yards, caught 33 passes for 209 yards, also scored a touchdown. I feel like, kind of like Tyjae Spears, Charbonnet is being drafted very, very close to his floor, which is Kenneth Walker's handcuff. And we know that Zach Charbonnet is a top-tier handcuff. There were 3 games last year where he played without Kenneth Walker. These were his workload numbers in those matchups. 15 carries, 6 targets, 14 carries, 4 targets, 19 carries, 2 targets. So 18 opportunities, 21 opportunities twice. He was very, very involved when Kenneth Walker was out of the lineup. So that's his floor, right? A probably RB1 week to week if Kenneth Walker misses any time. But I also feel like, I've talked about this in a few other videos, people are way too confident that Kenneth Walker is just going to come in and dominate this backfield, dominate the opportunity share. You have a new offensive coordinator coming in. Both Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker are round 2 picks. Charbonnet was actually better in rushing yards over expected per attempt last year and yards per carry. So I think the edge a lot of people would give Kenneth Walker, especially heading into last year, was like he's the way better pure runner. He straight up was not in the 2023 season. And then Zach Charbonnet, both guys were kind of similarly involved as pass catchers, but Charbonnet has the way better receiving profile when we're looking back to their college production. And last year, Zach Charbonnet was the rookie. So heading into his second year in the NFL, could take a leap in workload. I would not be shocked if this is a very strong committee between these two, and this is not an indictment on Kenneth Walker. I think they have two pretty good running backs, so if you have two pretty good running backs, you probably are going to want to level out the workload a little bit. So I'm very interested in Zach Charbonnet here. I think you're getting him as like a really nice handcuff for his floor, which is a totally reasonable spot to pick him as the RB42, but you also just have all this upside that he works into a committee here. I think the Seahawks offense could kind of bounce back after a rougher 2023, so definitely like Zach Charbonnet here as a second-year running back. And then the final running back I'm going to talk about here, it's going to be Kendre Miller. He's going as like a back-end RB4, running back 45, and he was someone who really had injuries limit him in his rookie season, had a hamstring strain, a bruised shoulder, and then an ankle sprain, so pretty much all across the board. He was just struggling to stay healthy. He rushed for 156 yards, caught 10 passes for 117 receiving yards, scored 1 touchdown. As long as he can stay healthy, he should have a much better opportunity to carve out a role in this offense. I'm not super confident he overtakes Alvin Kamara, even though Kamara was not efficient last year. He's a veteran running back. They were fine force-feeding him touches. I know they have a shake-up a little bit with the coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball, but like Kamara should be at least starting off the season as the running back 1. Kendre Miller will have to kind of like work his way in. And I think even with an Alvin Kamara injury, like, is this going to turn into a committee with Kendre Miller and Jamal Williams? I'm not saying like he's a bad pick here as the running back 45, but I'd kind of be willing to just take some of the more locked-in handcuff options. Like maybe you could pitch the upside of Kendre Miller overtakes Kamara in this backfield. I just don't know if it's super likely, so I'd maybe prefer some of the cleaner handcuff options. But if you do really like Kendre Miller, you like him as the prospect, you're obviously not breaking the bank here drafting him as like the running back 45 in your leagues. So that's going to wrap it up for the year 2 running backs that are going in the first 12 rounds. Definitely some interesting options. We have the high-end guys. Then you kind of have a fall-off, but I think even after that fall-off, you still have guys that are interesting values. Tyjae Spears, Zach Charbonnet, guys who can be in committees, but maybe aren't drafted like they have that upside. So that's going to wrap it up for me. Thank you all for stopping by. We'll have the year 2 wide receivers coming out tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But thank you again, and I'll see you all in the next one.